You may have heard the saying that the one constant in life is change. And in the world of work in which we live, this has never been more true. But even change itself keeps changing, which is why for this episode of Less Chatter, More Matter, I was delighted to interview the effervescent Janine Ellison. Janine is a change management leader, conference co-chair, and a firm believer that the best outcomes in work and in life come from surrounding yourself with great people. How good is that? And with a career built on partnering with business leaders through complex strategic and operational change, Janine is known for her ability to build cohesive delivery teams that bring together the right mix of project and business resources to drive transformation that actually sticks. Her leadership style is collaborative, her stakeholder instincts are sharp, and her commitment to sustainable change is unwavering. Off the back of her professional life, you will find Janine equally energised by community adventure and the thrill of something new. She's a passionate experimenter who believes growth happens at the edges of your comfort zone, whether that's a new challenge at work, a new place to explore, or a new idea worth backing. Janine's drive is simple: connect deeply, lead boldly, and never stop exploring. I love her so much. And in her role as one of the co-founders of Rethink Change, Janine has her finger on the pulse of the key trends emerging in the change management and change communication fields. So in this episode, she shares the changing trends she's seen over the past few years and what might be coming next. Janine also shares her rethink philosophy, arguing that the traditional way we approach change in the workplace is often broken because it treats people as an afterthought. And we dive into why so many change initiatives fail. It's not because the strategy was wrong, but, hint, hint, because the people side was neglected. Janine is an absolute superstar change manager and human being, and I'm sure you'll enjoy learning from her as much as I did. So, here's Janine. Janine Ellison, welcome to Less Chatter, More Matter.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here. Before we get into today's session, can you tell our audience a little bit about you? Who are you? What do you do? How did you come to develop your expertise in that space?
All right. Good place to start. So I suppose more holistically, I like to think I'm many things. So I'm particularly interested in adventures. I love travel. I love the great unknown. But I think really at the core of everything that I do is people. So whether it be family, friends, and community. So that kind of sits consistently across everything. In terms of change management, I say I've been doing it for an awfully long time, but wasn't always with the label of change manager. I think for most of us who've been in this space, and I think I've been doing this for about 25 years now, we kind of started in different roles. So my background was organizational psychology and industrial relations, which is kind of all design, organizational relations here. And yes, so over a period of time, just evolved into change management and worked in many different organizations, different types of initiatives and programs. And still enjoying it. Every day is an adventure.
Excellent. Well, change is definitely the right place to be when you love adventure. So I think we can all agree on that. All right, now let's start with the basics. How do you define change management and what value does that bring to a workplace?
Yeah, not a basic question, Mel.
No, that's true, but it's fundamentals, I guess, is my word.
Good place to start. So for me, there's a few lenses. So if we look at it from an operational sense, it's really about emerging process and then the human psychology and towards achieving a specific outcome for both people, but also business customers, etc. So I suppose that's the process kind of answer to it. But probably more useful is I've always seen it as two key phases. So the first one is we're real enablers, and I always see it as the puppet master in the background, really supporting and enabling the business and our key stakeholders and audiences to adopt and feel safe and supported, taking on a change. So I've always thought that one of the challenges we have in change management is really good change managers are invisible. And then we land up in this loop and challenge of what is the value of change management. Well, when it's landing well, it means you've had a fabulous change manager, and if you don't know their name, that's even better. So I think it's one of those loops.
Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think there's the
yeah.
first part about enabling the business and our stakeholders and impacted audiences to take on change. But I think there's another really important second stage is, I call it the reporter responder. And this is about adoption. So it's kind of like the short term, but also then the longer term as well, around how do we make sure that this becomes the new norm. And this is often the piece we see in organizations that kind of rocks off a little bit. And there's always the interesting debate as to what is the role of change, what is the role of the business owner catching that change. But the real success of an effective change manager is someone who's first delivered to go the line. But really, the results and the impact is when it's embedded in. And we say business as usual, but it's when it's the norm. It's no longer babysitting. So it's a very roundabout way to define change management.
Yeah, I think the key parts that you pulled out there, like there is that process. Like, yes, we need a process that helps everybody stay on track, but the process only goes so far if you don't think about the people who are involved. And like you said, that long tail as well. I was talking to somebody about this just the other day, actually. It's good timing. We sort of go just a 3-phased approach, awareness, launch, embed. And one of the things we say is the embed phase is really where, as you say, people drop off because they're on to the next thing. They're on to the next change. They're on to the next fire that's burning somewhere. Got to put that out. And that embed phase, if that's not carefully orchestrated either, well, that change could just disappear. I think if you think about an example like technology. I launched a new system. Yay! Okay, but is anybody using it? And are they using it the way you want them to use it? Or are they having workarounds? Are they going back and using old things instead? And just negating all the positive impact you built up until that point.
And it's the irony of how much time, effort, and resource you focus on all levels of the organization that goes into a business case, in the funding model. And then when you're actually going to realize those benefits and deliver on that promise, which is effectively what a business case is, then everything drops off and we kind of move on to the next thing. So, yeah. And, we all understand why it happens, but when you can step back and look at it, probably doesn't make too much sense.
Yeah, exactly. So you and your business partner, Doug, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, are at the helm of Rethink Change, which we will put some links in the show notes to the resources you've got online and the conference you've got coming up. But obviously being in that position, you are in a really cool position because you get to hear from change professionals from all over Australia, New Zealand, further afield. What are you hearing about some of the trends that are emerging in the industry?
Yeah. And it's such a well-timed question because actually, I can give you a bit of context on this. We've brought in a fabulous data analyst who's crunched a whole lot of data points. So with every conference, what we get is we get about over 80 submissions from presenters and thought leaders in the space. But we also, for everyone who registers with the conference, we ask questions like, what are you most interested about? What do you want to learn more about? And then on the tail end, with the feedback, what surprised you? What are you still curious about? So we've actually, when we take a look, this is after the conference, we probably got close to 1,000 data points.
Wow.
And we've had some fabulous help from somebody who has done the analysis on those and helped us really train it over the 5 years what people were most interested in. So I've taken a few notes that you can just bear with me because it's fascinating to see how it's moved, and it really has. So 2022 was the first one. We were just coming out of COVID. So most of the interest was around what's new, what's good practice. But actually, by far the majority was community connection. So for anyone who knows Rethink Change, it's about rethinking change management. but it is very largely driven by community. And that first one, I think we were also starved of connection. That was the big call out. 2023, it was much more around where's the profession heading. So I think we started getting a sense of hybrid and the significant impact. And we also, it was the first time we saw AI and data starting to feed into some of the narrative of what people were interested in. 2024 was really the year around innovation. So we saw a lot of content and questions around agile design thinking, and AI moved from I'm interested in it to how is this really going to support my change work. So there was a real shift to what does it look like as a change practitioner in doing my everyday work. We also saw hybrid and communication really hitting some friction points about this is really prominent for me, and I'm not sure that we've quite worked out how we're going to manage our way through this. So 2024 was quite a pivotal year, I think, generally in the profession. 2025, so only last year, but it was a lot about the demand had shifted to tools and ideas around capability and influence in complex environments. So we're going, the world's getting messier. Organizations are becoming more complex. We've all got big, audacious agendas. We are doing a lot more than we ever had before. So actually, how do I, as a change practitioner, navigate through this? And what are the tools and ideas that I can use to help me move forward? We also got a lot of feedback last year on case studies. So we know everyone loves a story. I mean, you're the queen of storytelling. So we know that's always been hugely insightful of what it actually looks like. But last year we had a lot of conversation around, you show me a case study where you've actually applied this stuff. People don't want frameworks. They don't want models. They want to know how you kind of navigate through this really messy waters. So that was big last year. This year, just on a high level, what we're getting a lot of questions about is volume of change. And we've got some amazing presenters, which are all about, there's one title that I love, which is the strategic stillness. It's like, guys, just give us a chance. Like, we reset strategies. That's great. We know the importance of the strategy. But actually, what doesn't work for progressing and landing is this constant tacking. At some point, we need to consolidate to move forward. And there were a lot of submissions and requests for how do we navigate just this overwhelming volume. And with AI, of course, the fear is that's going to scale up even more. So, yeah, that's a big one. And then the only other features, right, which is no surprise, is when we've seen changes more environmental. So we had the Work Health and Safety Act that came through in 2023. We had a lot of activity around psychosocial hazards. But those are the environmental trends. But interests of the community, I think, it's quite interesting. We get some really good insights from the questions and submissions.
And it sounds like what you're pulling out of this year's questions is so reflective of all the research we're seeing too, right, around just the scale of change, not just the scale, but the frequency, and the fact that it's faster than ever before as well in many respects. It's, it's from one, as you said, constant tacking from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's really no wonder that people are, certainly the research I've been seeing, beyond change fatigued. They're change apathetic. They just stop caring in many cases. And that's really hard to reignite meaning and purpose and excitement in people about change when they just are over it. They're just done. And I love that idea of strategic stillness, because that might be the breathing room that people need to re-engage with why they're there, why they're in the workplace, why they're doing what they're doing every day. So, but you did mention something there about AI, and we would be remiss not to talk about it. And I know that You guys have facilitated a couple of boot camps as well, because the demand is obviously there. It's playing a much bigger role in the work that we do. Whether you're a change manager, change comms person, project manager, you're involved in change in some way, AI is there. What do change professionals need to be doing to stay on top of AI, to stay relevant?
So, I mean, I think the obvious things are just do it. Just play, jump in, have a go. Treat it like your business partner, your role partner. But I think there's, for me, a bit of a more important part, which is actually change practitioners take control. Don't be a recipient of what AI is doing to you. Get ahead of it and actually think about the work you do and the elements of your role and where AI can help you do better, do more, add more value. Because I think the language is mixed, but I do feel like we're waiting for organizations to cascade, give us guidance, give us this, give us that. We're waiting for signs coming from, different platforms, etc. But I do think we need to, as a profession, look at our role, the work we do, and how we can almost take control about how we use AI. Because no one wants to be that victim of change. And this is and will be the most significant change impact that we're going to have on our profession ever. And we're really going to feel it on every level. So both on the enterprise level, the challenges we're facing into, you've used the language of change fatigue, and I think it's a word, we need new language, Mel.
Yeah.
I think it's not serving us very well at the moment.
That's true.
While we can quantify volume of change, what we actually can't quantify is capacity to absorb. And it's more than 1 + 1 + 1. It's actually the emotional, how taxing it is on me, on my sense of security. And so I just think that's a bit off track, but I do think it's a space we need to play with. And AI is going to add a layer to where we work, the people we work with, the executives we engage, and the expectations of everyone in that hierarchy.
Yeah, I agree. And I was talking to his name's Dan Sodergren a few weeks ago out of the UK, and for another podcast episode, and he was we're looking at the internal comms perspective in particular. But he said, if you're not keeping up with AI, he's very blunt about it. He's like, he thinks that in 2 years you won't have a job. Internal comms is going to be sucked into other roles. It's going to be, and so that was quite, I guess, confronting in many ways. But it does beg the question about, okay, there are lots of roles that are in that position, really. How do we show the value that we bring? Because AI is just a tool. It's a powerful tool and it's driving change, but it's just a tool. So where's the value for us in that organization? And one of the things I think for change managers, for comms people, one, it's the risk lens, because we are people focused, we can sort of go, this is a risk to people and a risk to the business. But I also think it's relationships. People don't want to have a conversation or a relationship with a robot at work. They want to talk to a human and have a human hear what they're worried about and a human hear where they're struggling with the change, not an AI agent.
I think that's so true. And I think while, if I can put it, the mechanics of how we do change management is going to change, I think the core principles of we care for people, we care for the experience they go through during those periods of change. And we have the principle of enabling leaders to lead and support their teams. And I think if we kind of stay true to those principles, it's just the how we do it, which is the issue.
Yeah.
But actually, that's the humanistic, the relational aspect you're talking to. So we have a space, but we need to define what this partnership with AI looks like.
And like you said, we can't sit around and wait for somebody to hand it to us. It's not going to work that way. And by the time we do, it's probably too late. Oh, that's really interesting insights. Beyond AI, what are some of the other skills that you think we need to develop in the profession to keep it continually evolving?
Yeah. I think for me, it's just be a life observer. And change management, truthfully, I've always joked, and I know my kids had said to me on a few occasions, don't change manage we, but actually it applies everywhere. And there's so many adjacent and parallel learnings in every industry, every experience. And I think just be that life observer. There's gold out there everywhere. I think there's a few other things because it's unpredictable. And if your question was more specific of what's happening next year in change management, Mel, I have no idea. But what I do know is if you talk to the right people and you surround yourself with the right conversations, which is things why your podcast and, similar ones others are covering are so important, is all these little pieces of information trigger thoughts and ideas. And that's how we will navigate into uncertainty, is by being able to bring all these insights together, because it's always going to be adaptive in situation. And the bigger your awareness, the bigger your toolkit, the more chance you'll see the signs, recognize the triggers, and be able to respond. So I think, just surround yourself with great people. I'm a big believer, as you know, networks, community. I'm a big believer in mentorship. So I know mentors have made all the difference for me at those key periods in my career, and just be that observing life.
Yeah, I think that's very solid advice. Well, Janine, we have 3 questions we ask every guest on the podcast. Are you ready for those?
Okay.
Let's get amongst it. So the first one is, what is an unexpected or left of field way that you learned a valuable lesson about change or communication or both?
So the first time I applied for a real change management role, I completely oversold myself. So I went and booked, and in fact, I found it, if you can believe it, in my bookshelf.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I went to Bali on holiday with the family, and I sat down. Look, there's even Post-it notes. So it's called Beyond Change Management. So I very diligently read the book, and I highlighted some things that sounded really impressive. Anyway, I went into the interview, and I'm sure my interviewer will listen to your podcast at some point. And I thought I was well equipped. I had all the lingo, not realizing, Mel, that actually this book's about change leadership, not change management. And I'm still not quite sure why she gave me the role, but what I learned, which I'm not sure is a useful skill for anyone, is fake it till you make it. But it was a bit of a sink or swim situation, but what I worked out very quickly was a good mentor was going to be incredibly helpful. And actually, if you ask the right questions and you be open and receptive and trust your guts, the good old intuition. If you are a people person, there's a good chance you'll navigate your way through this. So I'm not sure if that's a good selling point for having a valuable lesson, and anyway, she's now a fabulous and appreciated friend.
Excellent. Well, clearly it worked out, so that's good.
Yes.
Second question, what is a book or podcast you love and would recommend to our listeners?
So this one's a little bit left of center. So there's a podcast called Acquired. Do you know it?
No, but now I'm going to go look for it.
It's pretty amazing. So it's I think they were fund managers or investment bankers or something. And what they do is they really do a deep dive into some of the world's greatest companies. And they kind of build out this playbook. And they go all the way back to the founders and the stories over time. And I think besides being amazing, so they look at the luxury brands, they do Mars, like that, Coca-Cola, etc. Incredible stories. But I think the reason why it really has caught me is that what is common across all these organizations and everything we see day to day is actually they all a journey of change. They also all about great leadership and good and bad decisions. And I think the part that always catches me is how powerful culture is. That they bring in new executives, new CEOs, and actually the culture can almost work the person in, work the person out. And I think for anyone who's interested in these incredible brands, yeah, it's a great story. And they're two really smart, articulate men.
Well, I'll be going to look that up straight after we finish here. So thank you for sharing that. Now, last question. If you could wave your magic wand and change one thing about change communication at work, what would it be?
This is a really tough one. And it's probably a bit of an extension on that question. I think for me, if the magic wand could really drive clarity and ownership by our business leaders about being accountable for landing and adopting change, I feel that would be the biggest unlock for successful change management. Because I think a lot of the time we work in environments to get things through, where in actual fact, if we had that level of clarity with our business leaders, we would be invited in those spaces. So I think a lot of time is spent trying to nudge our way in, whereas that could not be changed the whole time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you. Now, let's talk about Rethink Change. The 5th conference is coming up, so I feel like we need cake. That's very important, actually.
There's going to be a lot of cake and bubbles. And I discovered the 5th anniversary is wood. So much
okay.
Poor old Doug. So I was saying to Doug the other day, no Post-its, no pens. We need something that's wood.
Poor Doug, indeed. So tell us a bit about this year's conference. What can people expect?
Amazing. So the theme of it, so it's 14th, 15th, 16th of May. So as you all know, it's kind of pick your adventure. The Thursday is 2 master classes, amazing content. Friday is the full day conference where we've got an online audience and face-to-face. And we're going into some fancy new premises this year. So we're excited about that. I know, stepping it up. And then on the Saturday, we have 2 more master classes. The theme for the conference is curiosity. And I think if only for the keynote, it's going to be so worthwhile. So he's somebody completely left of field and doesn't talk change management, doesn't talk comms, but he really talks mindset. So that's the invitation to go into the day, to really challenge yourself, be curious, be open-minded. So outstanding presenters, as we always do, from a very generous community who's just so happy to share their IP. And I know, Mel, you've got a special spot with us as well.
I do, yes. I'll be talking about the complexity of change and how we actually make that less complex for the people we need to work with in the business. So your key stakeholders, but as well as your audiences as well. So expect lots of visuals from me. You know, I'm a visual person.
And look, in an environment of layers and layers of change, I think all of us will get good value out of that. Yep, so it's going to be amazing, as it always is. It's kind of the highlight of my year, which is, I don't know if that's tragic or not. Yeah, fun. Our favorite event of the year.
And look, I am not saying this just because I'm biased about it. I have so enjoyed every conference I've been to. It's just such a wonderful community. I think that's the thing I found about the Rethink Change community. When I first went, my first one I went a few years ago, I think maybe 2023 maybe. I'd never been outside of a comms conference before. So this is all new people and everybody was just so welcoming and so lovely, so smart. And I thoroughly enjoy myself every time I'm there. So I'm excited by it. We'll put the links in the show notes to that as well. Janine, thank you so much for joining us today on Less Chatter, More Matter.
Thanks, Mel. Lovely to see you.